Hi, welcome back to Blaise Cooks. I'm Blaise, your host, and I must apologize. It's been a long time since I made a video. I haven't made one since March, 6 months ago. And I'm going to start off this season, it's the fall in the Northeast, by baking bread. Because you know what? There's nothing like baking your own bread on a cool or even cold afternoon on the weekend. And the smell of your house just fills with that smell of baking bread. And let me tell you, you might be able to buy bread at bakeries. I'm sure you can buy bread, but there's nothing like making your own bread. Anyway, we're starting off with just an all-purpose flour that I weighed out, 375 grams on this scale. It's approximately 2.5 cups. I use the scale all the time for precision, but also it keeps me from dirtying too many cups. So I love this scale. I use it all the time. To this flour, we're going to add instant yeast. This is what they call bread machine yeast now if you're in your supermarket. What's nice about this is you just put it right in the flour. You don't have to mix it in with some warm water and let it sit for 5 minutes. Not that that's any big deal, but frankly, this is the only yeast that was available at the store when I went to buy a new jar. I'm also going to put in 2 teaspoons of table salt. Oh, by the way, that was a heaping teaspoon of the instant yeast. To that, I'm going to add 3/4 cup room temperature water. It can be a little warmer because the yeast likes that warmer temperature, body temperature. And then, last but not least, I'm going to add 3/4 cup of my sourdough starter. Now, you can use any sourdough starter that you want, any recipe you find. There's some that are extra tangy, some that are mild. This is pretty mild, and it doesn't really matter. Just make sure it's nice and soupy and has that nice fragrance. It sort of smells like beer, it sort of smells like bread, but it just gives your bread a nice tan. So we're going to put it on this mixer. The mixer paddle is a little dirty. I've already made one batch, so I just reuse it. Don't need to clean it. It's just bread dough stuck to it. I'm going to lock it down. I'm going to just get it mixed with the paddle first until it starts gathering together. Lest I not forget, I also have to put in a tablespoon of olive oil. Approximately. I like the flavor that gives you. It's hard to believe I didn't remember it sitting right next to me. Now you see that's still pretty wet. It's not gathering around the paddle yet. So I'm going to just add a little flour in just by hand. Not much. It doesn't take much to go from sticky wet to firming up and grabbing onto that paddle in one big clump. Now we're going to switch from the paddle to the dough hook and slip on the dough hook. Notice, let's see here, it's a hook. I'm going to make sure we don't have any up on the side. And here we're going to knead it for 3 minutes on medium. It's between 4 and 6 on this KitchenAid mixer. Now, as you can see, I'm having a little trouble scooping this out. But imagine doing this all by hand, which is another way to do this. The reason I'm using the mixer is I'm trying to make it as simple as possible for you because I want you to start baking your own bread and then serving it to me when you invite me over for dinner. So I'm just going to get more flour on top of this. And even though I'm trying to keep this simple, I still think anybody who makes their own bread should do a little of their own kneading. And another good thing about doing a little kneading, we're talking 30 seconds of kneading, let your hands feel the dough to see if it's ready. So I'm going to put it in this Cambro container. These are great containers. They're really just food service containers. You don't find them at Williams-Sonoma or some of those other retail outlets, but try to find them. They come in all shapes and sizes, square, round, flat, low. They have lids on them. You can really use them for all kinds of things. You can get their big buckets for brining. You've seen one of those in my other videos. And they have the lids. And instead of covering my dough with a dish towel, which you'll see in just about any bread recipe, I just put the lid on 3 corners. And then I'm just going to put this in a warm spot and let it rise for about 2 hours. In a little under 2 hours, my dough rose, and then I punched it down. After you punch it down, you let it sit for 10 minutes, and then you get it ready to put on your pan for the next step. Now remember, this was pretty wet, this dough, so I'm going to really get some flour on my hand because I'm going to try to prevent it from sticking to my hand as much as possible. I'm just going to basically scoop it out of this container, and most of the dough will come out pretty intact. And I have flour spread on the countertop. Might not be able to see it, but it's there. And I'm going to sprinkle the top of this to just absorb a little bit of the moisture on top of the dough because that's, obviously what's going to stick to my fingers. Basically what I'm trying to do is stretch this out into a long snake. Long snake of dough. I got my tray in front of me. Cut it in half, cut these two in half, cut these in half, and then we're going to go 16, folks. Oh, I might have cut one 3 times. There we go. And then we're going to sprinkle on the tray. I have that Reynolds no stick foil. Plus I'm going to put the coarse cornmeal on it because I'm gonna take every precaution because I don't want it to stick. So don't worry about if they stick a little bit together. Let's see, did I end up with 17? No, that's 16. And then we're gonna cover and get it ready for proofing. Now proofing is just a second rising. Remember, the dough rose, created some structure, created some lightness in the dough, but we punch it down and then we handle it a lot. So after we get it in the shape that the final baked bread is going to be in, we want it to rise again, and that's called proofing. Proofing is a shorter process than the first rise. It's generally close to 2 hours. Proofing is close to 1.5 hours, but I think with the warmth in my house, it's probably going to be closer to 1 hour. And you just cover it with a towel, and you just set it aside, and in 1.5 hours, we're going to put it in an oven, and shouldn't be but about 15 to 20 minutes in a convection oven before these rolls are ready. Okay, the proofing's done, and as you can see, the rolls have expanded and they've blended into each other, but it's not going to matter. They'll break apart easily. Now I'm going to cook these in an oven at 400 degrees convection, which makes things cook faster, and I'm cooking them on the upper third rack because I have to go get my daughter from school in about 13 to 15 minutes, and that's what I predict will be the time these take to bake. So let's hope that I can get this done and get over there on time. I'll see you when these come out of the oven. Well, I have to go, so I'm pulling them now. Let's see what we got here. Oh, they look pretty good. That's nice. You see, they're all stuck together, but notice they're not sticking. Sometimes I have them stick if I don't use that foil. And these will just break apart and be perfectly fine, but I'm not going to dare do that right now. They're about 300 degrees inside. I couldn't possibly even sample them until a couple hours from now when I get back. And as for any other videos coming up, whatever pops in my head, that's what we'll do. See you next time.